the leadership of the LGBTQ Commission, but also because if we don't have activists and leaders from the community who join our membership, that we're never going to take on these issues, take a stand, or be visible and prominent in the community. So I'm here from the Disability Commission. The LGBTQ Commission, raise your hand. You can talk to me about my commission, you can talk to them about the LGBT Commission, because as long as we do this, we can recognize that queer justice is a disability justice issue, justice for Palestine is a disability justice issue, and so forth. So thanks very much.
Next, I'd like to introduce Esther, who's a fabulous poet joining us this evening. Go ahead and come on up. We have our own little mini slam here.
Youth speaks.
Youth speaks. Youth right now is the truth right now.
In preparing for this event, I felt the need to clarify my message because I think the poem I'm about to read can be misunderstood in a lot of harmful ways that I don't intend for it to. Yes, Zionists happen to be Jewish, but Jews are not always Zionists, and I'm an example of one. I recognize that Judaism has been twisted into a tool of oppression and colonization to become the Zionist state of Israel, but my Judaism and the poem I'm about to read exists as a message that I hope communicates truth that can instead of oppression be a tool of justice. I'm a proudly Jewish, queer, anti-Zionist person, and my goal with this intersecting identity is to teach people that all of those parts of myself and the world alike have the potential to peacefully coexist. Thank you. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu. This is about the unbelievably kind people at the Palestinian Conflict Resolution Center in Bethlehem. The way a concrete barricade cuts their backyard in half like an unwanted scar, travels upward like the souls of 1,000 dead doves who will never fly again, whose olive branches are right now being cut to make room for Jewish mouths, whose limbs are stripped for their worth every time a reporter asks a Palestinian person for a digestible piece of their humanity to souvenir back home with him. How when told in my voice, this story might sound nicer than it truly is, and that will have been because I have not experienced the trauma of a genocide. No matter what the Haggadah says the Jews were doing when we were enslaved in Egypt, this is about how the wall on the Palestinian side is so covered in prayers of peace, spray painted in their own blood that for a moment it no longer looks like a wall, but a giant gravestone. This is not about us, sitting at our social justice Passover seders, crying out Dayenu as if anything less than humanity for people who are not in fact ourselves would have been enough, except that it is about me and all the other Jewish people I grew up around, reclining every Shabbat in our comfortable homes, sleeping soundly in our comfortable beds, eating unrisen bread as if we cannot afford the time to let it rise. And how about a metaphor for the ways in which my culture raised me to resemble so much of a pig, I forgot I was supposed to call myself a mouse. That it's more respectable to call ourselves oppressed these days than to look at the soles of our own shoes, to see who we have always been stepping on to get here. It is ironic how much of a gas chamber has been made of Gaza, and Israel wants to let everyone know us Jews are a recovering people, only looking for a warm place to lay our cold heads after the war, but I still have family in Zionist groups. They still wear their parents' skin on over theirs as if the trauma was tailored to fit their bodies, strut out of a 12th floor apartment in it, walk confident down the Upper West Manhattan sidewalk in it. The costume does not come without a snout. I should remind you, I love my family. But this is about how the man at the Conflict Resolution Center talked about the children living in Bethlehem, how they knew nothing of post-traumatic stress, how they know everything of continual trauma, how there is no space to grieve loss when every time you try to go to school, you're tear-gassed by your neighbor's soldiers making target practice out of your wide eyes. There will never be enough Band-Aid to cover a wound that keeps being bombed, but for some reason we are still praying. Avinu
Thank you so much. Let's show Esther some more love. Up next, I'd like to introduce Council Member Shama Sawan.
Thank you to Esther for that moving narrative. And thanks to everybody for being here, especially thanks to the LGBTQ and Disability Commissions who are doing exactly what we think they should be doing, which is empowering an actual political discussion. I wanted to also just offer my apologies in advance. It's possible that my staff and I will not be able to stay for the whole event just because we're overwhelmed with a lot of things to do. But please don't misunderstand our leaving early as any lack of interest. And I also wanted to share with you all that the recent massacre in Gaza was widely condemned, and I just wanted to mention that the Canadian Union of Public Employees, which represents hundreds of thousands of workers, actually released a very important statement against that violence, and also they say that they're disappointed in their own Liberal government in Canada for refusing to condemn Trump's decision to relocate the US Embassy to Jerusalem. But with your indulgence, I would like to read out loud the letter that my office just sent to the mayor and the city council in response to the many demands that we should cancel this screening, that somehow holding this screening and having the discussion tonight would either be anti-Semitic in itself or would provoke anti-Semitism or would somehow wrong certain community members. And I wanted to share with you our position as socialists from Socialist Alternative. Dear Mayor Durkin and City Council, I am writing to you about the screening scheduled for this evening of the film Pinkwashing Exposed, Seattle Fights Back. I encourage you to take the time to watch the film yourselves. I have personally watched it and found it to be in no way prejudiced against, unfair to, or factually inaccurate about any section of our community. It is a moving portrayal of events that transpired in 2012 in relation to the City of Seattle LGBTQ Commission and the City Council. The film recounts the efforts of activists and the courageous decision made by the LGBTQ Commission at the time to cancel an event that would have legitimized Stand With Us, a right-wing anti-Palestinian group, and the policies of the Israeli government in carrying out the brutal repression of Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. The film then goes on to show the subsequent campaign to make the commission publicly apologize for canceling the event. In my view, as an elected representative of Seattle's working people, the most unfortunate aspect of the 2012 events was that the mayor and the city council members at that time also joined in the chorus of voices demanding an apology from the LGBTQ commissioners for what was in fact a principled act on their part. I congratulate the LGBTQ commissioners in stating clearly that there is no genuine way for us to stand with one oppressed group of people without also actively standing up against other oppressions and injustices. As members of our community advocating for the rights of LGBTQ and disabled community members, we have an obligation to also stand up for the rights of the Palestinian people. As socialists, we stand in solidarity with Jewish, Muslim, and Christian working people in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank, and with all immigrant working people in Seattle, regardless of national origin, ethnicity, or religion. We believe that the only way to address the situation in Israel and Palestine is for Israeli and Palestinian working people to organize united movements against the brutal occupation and repression of Palestinian people by the Israeli ruling class, openly abetted by the US ruling class. These united movements should also build the fight for unionized living wage jobs, affordable housing for all, and women's and LGBTQ rights in the region. The City of Seattle's support for this evening's screening is also extremely timely in light of the massacre of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip on May 14th as an attack on peaceful protests against the Trump-ordered embassy transfer to Jerusalem. It was the deadliest day for Palestinians since the Gaza war in 2014. The attack came on top of the ongoing brutal siege imposed on them for over a decade and has drawn broad worldwide condemnation, including from the United Nations. 62 people were shot dead in one day, adding to the dozens slain previously in demonstrations in recent weeks. Among those killed were Palestinian teenage youths, medics, journalists, and an 8-month-old baby girl who died after massive exposure to tear gas. Over 1,500 Palestinians were injured by Israeli live fire, rubber-coated steel bullets, and tear gas. Supporting the screening is also entirely consistent with Seattle's declaration to being a sanctuary city. Canceling the event, if that is what the city establishment had decided to do, would be a slap in the face to all those fighting for Palestinian rights in the face of the massacre in Gaza. I invite you to watch the film online. It is available for free. And I urge you to join us this evening at the event. As the letter from the LGBTQ Commission released yesterday says, Seattle community members with diverse and intersecting backgrounds, including individuals who are LGBTQ, Jewish, Palestinian, Christian, immigrant, people born and raised in Seattle, and others, attended Seattle LGBTQ Commission meetings to provide public comment and request we host this film screening at City Hall. I understand the calls by some that quote-unquote both sides should be heard. My office would be happy to help organize an event where the issues involved are discussed and debated in depth. I believe, though, that we should also recognize that the just and accurate critique of Israel's illegal policy of brutal repression of the Palestinian people is far too often excluded from American political discourse, and that it is correct, therefore, to support the screening and discussion organized for this meeting.
Yes.
Everyone is cordially invited to listen and participate in a peaceful and respectful discussion and help organize future discussions. Finally, let me address the matter of anti-Semitism. The Jewish Federation leadership, in calling for cancellation of the event, claims that showing this film will, quote, stir up increased anti-Semitism, unquote. Anyone who gives the film a balanced viewing will reject that the film is in any way bolsters or provokes anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a pervasive and virulent disease that we must fight everywhere it shows up. I stand with all Jewish working people in opposing anti-Semitism. Most recently, we saw two prominent anti-Semitic pastors deliver prayers at the provocative opening of the US Embassy in Jerusalem. John Hagee, who has claimed that Hitler was a hunter sent by God, and Robert Jeffress, who has preached that you can't be saved by being a Jew. Surprisingly, I am yet to hear the people who claim pinkwashing exposed provokes anti-Semitism denounce these hateful preachers who were invited by the Israeli government with the blessing of the Trump administration.
That's right.
As the US State Department's own definition of anti-Semitism notes, a definition cited by the Jewish Federation in denouncing the pinkwashing exposed film, quote, criticism of Israel similar to that leveled against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic, unquote. I have been consistent, as have all the activists who are supporting this film, in opposing ruling classes everywhere as they act to subjugate others to pursue their own interests against those of working and oppressed people, flout UN resolutions to pursue peaceful settlements of land issues, and create different sets of laws for people of different ethnicities and nationalities. Lastly, the film's central point must be taken on board. The fact that the Israeli government has policies, at least for some of its inhabitants, that are more LGBTQ friendly than those in neighboring states does not diminish or negate the inhumanity of its killing of and oppressing the Palestinian people. Thank you.
We're just going to turn the mics down and then we'll get started with the film.